Test 1, 2, 3, test. Okay, I understand that we're live now. Let's call this meeting to order. First item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ted, you going to give the invocation?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening. Please join me in prayer. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for another beautiful day in the Ozarks, and thankful for a great 2021 and looking forward to 2022 for our visitors, our residents, and our businesses. Father, we invite you in these chambers tonight as items are discussed and decisions are made, that everything we do to your honor and glory. Father, we thank you also for the board, for our 200 plus employees that serve here, and especially as we introduce Jennifer Thompson tonight as one of those valuable employees that went above and beyond. Father, we thank you. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Make an announcement, if I could, please. Mayor Milton is unable to attend tonight's meeting. As acting president, I'll be running the meeting and also be maintaining my representation for Ward 1, and will be voting on tonight's matters. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Denham. Here. Skanes.
Here.
Cooper.
Here.
Milton. Fenton.
Here.
Whitus.
Here.
C. Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd still like to ask for each of you to make sure that your phones are on silent during this time frame. Tonight we have an award, and I will be presenting Jennifer Thompson, the Utilities Department, as Employee of the Month for January 2022. Jennifer, would you come down, please?
We'll get you something.
It's my privilege to announce the City of Branson Service and Excellent Employee of the Month Award for January 2022, going to Utilities Water Treatment Electrician Jennifer Thompson. This award is to recognize employees who have gone above and beyond and whose performance exemplifies City of Branson's values. Jennifer was nominated for this award because of her exceptional ability to give 120% every day, no matter the situation. She constantly goes above and beyond, proactively looking for ways to help and contribute when her tasks are complete. She goes out of the way to help our residents. The Utilities Department has even received a call from a citizen thanking us for Jennifer's helpfulness and her hard work ethic. That's major right there. On behalf of the Mayor, Board of Aldermen, City Administrator, City staff, it is my honor to announce Jennifer Thompson as the City of Branson's 2022 Service and Excellent Employee of the Month. Congratulations and keep up the good work.
I wrote a little something just in case I had the opportunity. This kind of feels like I won an Academy Award. It's awesome. I love this feeling.
Work it, girl.
I'm going to. Working for the city, I have experienced a management that cultivates an environment that encourages and supports their team. My coworkers are outstanding individuals who truly want to succeed and care for each other as well as the city of Branson. With all of that being said, they all make it easy for me to want to do my best and beyond every day. I need to thank the Lord for the struggles and circumstances which led my family and I to Branson, and my family for their love and support. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the public comment section of the Board of Aldermen meeting. At this time, the board will hear from the citizens who have signed up in the order they are listed. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers tonight?
Yes, we do. Our first speaker is Gary Groman.
Gary's going to come down and give the fishing report down on Lake Taney.
Gary Groman, 350 South Wildwood Drive, Branson, Missouri. I know you say not again. We ended the year with him and we're starting this year with him. I'm sorry, but circumstances dictate that I must appear. What does the statement 1 + 1 = 3 prove? In terms of the truth of what 1 + 1 actually equals, it proves nothing. In terms of the person making the statement, it could mean many things. To most, however, it would probably indicate that the person making the statement is not a math genius. The statement is a conclusion. What's essential in evaluating any conclusion is the person's basis for reaching that conclusion. In this case, to help establish that, I would ask, how do you know that 1 + 1 = 3? Or why do you say that 1 + 1 = 3? Unfortunately, in today's society, many accept conclusions at their face value without considering their basis. At a recent Board of Aldermen meeting, a city employee from the finance department, as was her absolute right, expressed her conclusions about me and what I have written to this board, which is the reason I'm here tonight. She said that my writings had, quote, caused a lot of hurt in our finance department, end quote. That is a conclusion. What was the basis for that conclusion? According to her, because I had published comments, quote, accusing our director of supplanting and stealing and not balancing the books, end quote. Yet another conclusion. I just have to ask, what is her basis for those conclusions? Specifically, what articles or comments that I have written is she referring to? Although I have some rhetorical questions with a one-word answer about her finance director, I cannot find anything I have ever written about her director that is false or accuses her either by title or name of, quote, supplanting and stealing and not balancing the books, end quote. Indeed, I can't find anything I've ever written about a director that even has those words singularly or collectively in it. Not done yet, she expressed another conclusion. Stop all those newspaper derogatory, and I couldn't make out what it said in the tape, newspaper for the whole world to see, that aren't even true. No basis, just the conclusion that what I had written was not true. Again, I would ask, precisely what did I write that wasn't true? In terms of what I write and how I write it, I would add a Gone with the Wind touch to a paraphrase of one of my favorite Abraham Lincoln quotes. I do the very best I know how, the very best I can, and will do so until the end. If the end brings me out all right, what's said against me won't amount to anything. If the end brings me out wrong, 10 angels swearing I was right isn't going to make a damn difference. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Gary. Madam Clerk,
Our next speaker is Cherry Webster.
Ms. Webster? No.
My name is Cherry Webster. I live at 118 Country Bluff Drive. I'm here tonight to speak again on the topic of waived fees for developers. I have specific questions that I would like answered, if not now, then perhaps by the next Board of Aldermen meeting. But to recap, last month I spoke about a report that Mr. Manning and possibly Ms. Simmons had prepared for all the waived fees for the last 3 years, 2019, 20, and all of 2021 through September. The report was void of any dates associated with the fees. The report misidentified the business name for Fall Creek Townhomes as MHDC Housing. MHDC is effectively the bank. It's not the landowner nor the syndicator, and it's certainly not the permit holder. Look at the permits. A more appropriate name would be Dan Ruda, Vacation World, Master Construction, Tammy Creason, DHTC. The report also misconstrues the entity that waived the $38,000 in fees. And that's a correction. Last month, my math wasn't good. It wasn't $36,000, it was $38,000 in fees. The city administrator actually waived the fees, not the Board of Aldermen. And last month, Mr. Dobbins stated at that December 14th hearing that the $38,000, quote, in this case, was a rather large sum of money, and I was not personally willing to do that. It was not appropriate for me to make that decision at the time, so I left it, meaning the decision to waive the fees, up to the Board of Aldermen. He went on to state that in his one-on-two meetings he holds each month with each board's aldermen, quote, "I ask them for direction on things," end quote. Question number one for Mr. Dobbins. How did you get direction, especially from Mr. Skanes, to make a decision to waive $38,000 in building permit fees? Because also at the 12-14 Alderman meeting, with respect to those one-on-two meetings, Alderman Skanes stated 3 times within 1 minute, quote, "We don't decide anything in the meetings. There are no decisions are ever made in those meetings. There's no decisions ever made." Question for Alderman Skanes. How did you give direction to the city administrator, Dobbins, to make the decision to waive $38,000 in building permit fees when you repeatedly insisted that no decisions are made in those meetings? And then question for Mr. Dobbins and Mr. Manning. Would you please correct the report to reflect that it was the city administrator that waived the $38,000 in fees? And would you replace MHDC housing with an accurate business name, perhaps one from the actual permits? Next topic is city resources versus outside funding. Mr. Dobbins had made a couple of statements about if the city provides resources, that applicants get more favorable treatment. Well, I talked to MHDC and to Jason Ray, who had organized that meeting to talk about HUD funding and MHDC financing. And both of them stated, Mr. Ray stated waive fees weren't discussed. MHDC said they did not specifically discuss waiving fees. The city having its own, adding its own resources was out of context. It wasn't with respect to housing, it was with respect to other projects. An example, economic development projects. The example Mr. Ray gave was the Compton Water Treatment Plant, where the city did put up some matching funding. Question for Mr. Dobbins. How does waiving building permit fees 9 months after a developer has already received an MHD's funding award actually help that developer's application to have been looked upon more favorably because it has assistance from the community? Question for Mr. Dobbins. Why would the city administrator even consider waiving fees for a developer whose project was awarded $5 million in a free HUD grant and another almost $2 million in low-income housing tax credits that also aren't repaid, when those fee waivers could be more productively utilized by a small developer who doesn't have any free funding? And if the city is so short on revenue, why are you waiving any fees at all? Next question for Mr. Dobbins. How are you going to handle Ruta's next project,
30
Bluffview
seconds.
Apartments off of Gretna Road? Are you going to waive fees again for his building construction permits? Are you going to do it behind closed doors? Or are you going to do it as a BOA agenda? And the last topic is reference to waived fees and lost revenue. The bottom line is that $38,000 was revenue that was given away before it was even collected. And when I asked for a records request from the finance department for
Time.
how they accounted
Terry,
that
how much-
lost
How
revenue.
much longer do you think it might take?
30 seconds?
Okay, you're granted.
The finance department came back and said, per the City of Branson Finance Department, until the fee has been paid, it is not a revenue and is not a part of the finance department. They don't know anything about the waived fees. So when the alderman, when Mr. Dobbins does his one-on-two meetings with the alderman, and then he does with 2 more, and then he does 2 more, kind of daisy chaining his votes that he's not asking votes for, but getting direction, it comes across as quite opaque. I don't think you can get much more opaque than that. And finances really needs to be transparent. The city has a requirement that if an expenditure exceeds over $15,000, it has to come before the Board of Aldermen for a vote, public hearing, public vote. That at the very least should be a requirement for waived fees. Mr. Dobbins waived over twice that amount, $38,000 in fees. And although he thought he was being transparent by going to the Board Alderman for direction, it's the 12,000 plus residents of Branson that need to see transparency. This opaqueness needs to stop. So, question for Mr.
Terry,
Mr.
you've
Dobbins.
exceeded your 30 seconds.
May I read the last question and that's it?
Yes, ma'am.
The question for the Alderman, the Mayor, Dobbins, and Roush: what is the procedure to initiate a change to the process of waiving fees? I would request that any fees, group of fees over $1,000 be required to go before the Board of Aldermen for public comment and a public vote. And I would also request that there be a mechanism for the city administrator and the finance department to identify, report, track, and account for lost revenue resources.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
I would just like to make a comment because I am an alderman and I do attend meetings, regular meetings, with the other alderman, Jamie Whitus, who's also on Ward 3. At those meetings, I would just like, for the record, to state I do not make decisions in those meetings regarding fee waivers. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we can all say that. I've never made a decision, so.
Yeah, same
Thank you, Ruth.
Jeff?
Yeah, you want a roll call? Same with me.
Well, then how did July 17th, 2020, did $38,000 in fees get waived based upon the direction that Mr. Dobbins received in his one-on-two meetings?
Are you asking me directly?
It's for Stan.
As I told you back on December 14th, the board members come and visit with me. I do not ask them to vote. I tell them, these are some options that we have. This is the direction that I would recommend we go. I'm going to go that direction unless you have an issue with that.
Okay, well, that was one of the ways that I thought you might ask the question. You could say, someone's asked to waive fees, do you want me to waive them yes, do you want me to waive them no? Or, I'm going to waive some fees by such and such a time, if you don't want me to waive them, let me know. So that's basically how it works.
Right.
So that's how you give direction. And yet, so Mr. Skanes, you need to know, that's how you gave direction. That's how you gave the direction for him to
That's
make a
your opinion.
decision.
That did not happen. Let's cut this conversation off. It's really not going anywhere. I think Stan gave a proper answer. I think every board up here, member up here stated that we have not voted or told him to do anything. That's been your supposition. It did not happen. Next item,
That's all of our speakers tonight.
that is, thank you. You have something to pass out? You ready? Okay. Next is a consent agenda. Are there any items that any member of the audience would like to have moved down from the consent agenda to ask any additional questions or comments? Are there any items the board would like to have moved down? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please read the items on the consent agenda, please?
Your Honor, the items of the consent agenda are as follows. Approval of the Board of Aldermen minutes for the December 14th, 2021 regular meeting. Acknowledge receipt of Human Resources Committee minutes for the November 17th, 2021 meeting. Acknowledge receipt of Planning Commission minutes for the October 7th, 2021 study session and regular meeting. Final reading of Bill Number 6111, an ordinance amending the adopted 2021 budget for the City of Branson to adjust monies in the Tourism Fund for a payment to the Branson, Missouri Regional Airport TDD. Final reading of Bill Number 6112, an ordinance approving the renewal of the contract with Taney County Health Department for public health services and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill Number 6113, an ordinance approving the renewal of the contract with Resource X for access to online fiscal health and priority-based budgeting computer applications. Final reading of Bill Number 6116, an ordinance approving the contract with Highway Safety Solutions for guardrail repair and replacement in various locations and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill Number 6118, an ordinance approving the annual utilities contracts for water and wastewater treatment operation chemicals and authorizing the mayor to execute the contracts. Your Honor, that concludes the reading of the consent agenda. The floor is open for a motion approving all items on the consent agenda.
Okay, may I have that motions? Motion's been made by Ruth and seconded by Jeff. Please vote on the consent agenda.
Your Honor, that vote passes 6-0.
Do I need to read the names? Is it-
No, not when we have a full motion.
Thank you. Good to the regular agenda item, item number 9.
Your Honor, the next item is the final reading of Bill Number 5972, an ordinance amending Chapter 14 of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to animals by repealing said chapter in its entirety and enacting a new chapter in lieu thereof. This bill was postponed on its final reading during the November 9th, 2021 regular meeting. It has had a motion and a second and is ready for additional discussion and a vote.
We'll begin with a staff report from Chief Jeff Matthews, please.
Mr. President, members of the board, I think we've talked about this one, and the staff report is just a matter of, if you have any questions, I'm available.
Anybody in the audience wishing to speak to this matter, you could please come to the mic, state your name and address for the record.
Marshall Howden, 106 Rose O'Neill. Hello, everybody. I want to start off by saying that I really appreciate how much work our officers have on their plates and that a significant amount of study went into this topic. Branson is changing, and I can't tell you how safe it makes me feel when at my hotel I have to deal with an unlawful situation and all the officers know me by name. It makes me feel as if I'm being protected on a personal level, and that is invaluable for community policing to occur this way. So, having said that, however, I want to examine the work that was put into the drafting and revising of this ordinance from a philosophical perspective. Within one of the first lines of the document, it says that, quote, animal ownership is encouraged and welcomed in this city. Think about that for a second. While that language is not off-putting in any way, I certainly don't feel that our rights need to be encouraged or even sanctioned by this board or any other governing body. Perhaps it is concerning that this was even included because essentially it is saying, we recognize your rights, but now we are going to explain how we are going to curtail them. Folks, we have a citizenry that has voted numerous times to ensure that liberty and free market anti-regulatory principles rule the day in our community. So when we talk about city staff diving into the code to look for changes they want to make, they need to be looking at areas where we can become more free and not more regulated. Now, as far as the idea that there are certain aspects of this ordinance that we might need, I'm open to that. I do think it is wise, however, to separate commercial entities from individual homeowners. A magician's tiger should not be treated with the same oversight as a neighbor's parrot. And we could talk until we are blue in the face about which of the provisions within this document need to be stricken. But ultimately, things like licensing pets and requiring fees are just things that this pro-liberty citizenry as a whole are going to be against. 6 pets in a condo versus 6 pets in a mansion are 2 entirely different things, and that is where the freedom of differences comes into effect. I am constantly told as a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission to let the ordinances already on the books work as they were intended. So in other words, if the commission was concerned about a new development project because of the noise it might create at all hours of the night, we have a noise ordinance to take care of that. That should be the same principle at work in these instances. If a person's pet becomes a community hazard, we already have ways to address that. And insofar as we don't have those adequate tools, changes like these should be imparted on with principles of liberty in mind as opposed to principles of the regulatory state. Thank you for your time today, and I just ask that you listen to what the citizens are saying with their previous votes. Have a good evening.
Anybody else to speak? Any alderman?
Yes, Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to share something, please.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I too would like to thank Chief Matthews, your staff, all the citizens that have put in their time and effort in this proposed ordinance. It has taken a while, quite a while. This ordinance has been scheduled, and it's been rescheduled, and it's been modified, and it's been advertised, and it's been re-advertised, which has been quite unsettling to me. More importantly, it's been unsettling to our citizens as well. The existing ordinance, aside from some minor definition changes, maybe some tweaks so that we can make sure we're meeting the state regulations, and inclusion of a section on exotic animals, which is a great section, but aside from that, has thus far served the city well. My position is that citizens should have been allowed to dig into the existing ordinance and then been included in the decision-making process of making targeted, necessary changes that would work best for their community. Instead, the ordinance has been completely ripped out of the Branson Municipal Code. I have listened to the public, read and reread the existing ordinance, and I will not be supporting this item based on the following. Number one, a lack of initial transparency and inclusion of our citizens. Number two, there's too many added burdensome requirements. And number three, a possibility of unwelcome entrance into private residences. I definitely do not support throwing out the baby with the bathwater, but I do support working with the original ordinance to make changes that best reflect our citizens' needs. Responsible decision-making processes are so important, and our citizens deserve to be included in the entire process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others?
I've said from all along, I feel like that amending and taking each issue, or whatever the issues are that they're having, and adapting and amending the original ordinance would be something I would support as well.
Okay. Jeff, Jamie, Cody?
This has got, I know we've been through lots on this. I think we still have an opportunity that we can work through this, take some of the stuff that's entered and maybe even create a division of the exotics, and then, but I think there's just a lot in here, and I think there's a way that we could possibly trim it down to make it more feasible.
Yeah, Chief, first of all, not only to you and your staff and everybody that had input on this, I know there was a lot of time, and this certainly precedes me and several of the other members up here, when this started, and, I don't take that lightly, and I do know there was a lot of work that went into this, and I think there's, when I read through this initially, I think there's a lot of good, and then there's a lot where I just kind of, on a personal level, kind of scratch my head, and I think I've said that, every time we talked about this, and so my preference and what I'd like to see is, because there's, when we had our town hall meetings, and we have had input on this, I think there was a lot of stuff that by and large, nobody really had heartburn over, the commercial stuff, the exotic, universally, I heard, yeah, we need that. Like Alderman Denham, and then what I think some others have said, I think there's maybe a different way to approach this, where we take, what's there, we pull out what we know is sort of universally accepted, and instead of one big sweeping change, and instead of doing it that way, let's try to attack this piece by piece. And I know you're probably looking at me wanting to wring my neck at the even suggestion of that, but
No, sir. If the board makes a decision tonight and we get this off of our plate one way or another, the legislative branch is working, correct? You talk about making modifications and changing. just to let everybody know, we, as the police department, home to animal control, was asked to bring forth a comprehensive adjustment to the existing ordinance. And once again, I will tell you, I believe we did that. We created the listening sessions so that you could get feedback as elected aldermen, and then make recommended changes to the ordinance. So whatever your pleasure is tonight, whatever the reason, we stand behind it.
Well, I just, I don't know how this is going to go, but assuming it doesn't go through, I do think it's worth continuing this discussion, or if it goes through, it goes through, but if it doesn't, continuing this discussion, because there's no doubt that large parts of this are needed, and what was done, I think, in the mid-90s is what our existing code was basically written, so what was done then doesn't necessarily work today, and so I think we do need to update it, but if it doesn't go through tonight, it's not me saying, well, I don't like any of these changes, or I don't want any of this to happen, but maybe we can kind of chop it up and kind of bring it in piece by piece, if you will. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you again.
Mr. President, could I make a recommendation?
Well, Jeff hadn't had a chance to throw his 2 cents in. All right, go ahead.
I would request that you vote this down tonight, and that we take this, we're going to be doing an update on our 2030 plan, where we will get a lot of input from the public during that time. We take that opportunity at those meetings to then bring back what the citizens of the community actually want, to give you additional information.
Okay.
Would that be fair? That way we can get this all cleaned up anyway, because quite frankly, there's so many amendments to the amendments that I'm lost.
No, and I just want a clarification from Alderman Denham about, and I'm not quoting you, maybe I didn't hear you, but you say there was a lack of transparency and public input on this?
I was referring to at the onset that I feel the public should have been allowed to have the opportunity to look at the original ordinance instead of something that was just completely thrown out and a new was brought in. There wasn't really the opportunity for them to compare the old and the new.
Well, it wasn't hidden from them, so they did have access to it, and I don't know that I would have an appetite for having the public write venomous animals and exotic animal ordinances. I mean, input is one thing, but
Yes, input is what I was referring to.
so we had 3 town halls. I think like 45 people showed up. I know for a fact that probably 50% of those people showed up at all 3 of them. We had this thing down to punctuation corrections from the public, stood up here and said that. Spelling, punctuation, gifting kittens and puppies, unlimited chickens. I mean, we came that far, and now we're just moving on. So I'm a firm believer of take an ordinance, put it on the books, and deal with the one-off issues as they come up if they don't fit. But I think people on this board and our mayor have an appetite of waiting till the dog bites the kid, then we solve the problem. And I disagree with that. So I'm willing to go with the flow here. It's obviously been thrown out on social media by potential candidates here running for office that are already using this as their mass mandate. And it's unsettling to me that not only are attempting to do that, but they're doing it with misinformation and incorrect information. So those are my comments.
Anybody else? Chief, last chance to say, before I put 2 cents in? I agree that to move to vote this project down tonight and to also include that as part of the 2030 plan, primarily because of the amount of misinformation that has been thrown out there in this. It is disturbing to read some of the things that have been said that, was it Stanley Kaufman worked up a lot of this? The hard work that he put in behind this?
Yes, sir. Sergeant Kaufman and Lieutenant Jones back there have carried the most water in this whole project.
Just remarkable to impugn the integrity of these people. I was blown away. I'm sorry, Clay. Go ahead. You got something to say, buddy?
I don't know. I'm kind of lost on the misinformation part that y'all are talking about, but I don't think that really matters at this point, but.
Greater amount of information coming out. Do you understand the idea about the 2030?
Yeah,
and
no,
making it
yeah.
broader, okay.
No, I'll just.
Anybody else, any other alderman? Let's call the vote, please. When it comes up, mine's not showing anything. Where? Where's what meeting? Okay, push the right button. There you go. Okay.
We got it, Jim. That item was defeated 6-0. Your Honor, the next item is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute settlement participation forms to enable the city of Branson to participate in the National Opioid Settlement Agreement. The floor is open for a motion adopting the resolution.
Motion been made by Ruth and seconded by Jeff. Attorney LeBeck.
Good evening,
Report for us. Thank you.
Mr. President. This is pretty basic. What this allows us to do is, as a municipality, join on to the National Opioid Settlement that has been proposed against distributors of that drug, as well as Johnson & Johnson. Right now, we are in the preliminary stage of this. This is nationwide litigation. And if we sign on to this, this has the potential, by the Attorney General's calculations, if enough municipalities join on here in the state of Missouri, to potentially bring the Taney County about $260,000 in treatment funds towards the opioid crisis. So again, this is a very preliminary ask by city staff, and that is to basically authorize you or the mayor, to basically execute some agreements so that we can attach ourselves to this suit, because my recommendation is we don't want to go at this alone. It's a lot easier to join a national class action that was brought forward in 2017 by our Attorney General.
Thank you for that report. Anybody in the audience wish to address this issue, please? Hearing none, any alderman want to talk about it? Hearing none, please vote. Thank you, Chris.
That motion passed 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Your Honor, the next item is the resolution adopting the Taney County Local Emergency Operations Plan, LEOP, including the annex for a Branson Basic Plan. The floor is open for a motion adopting this resolution.
Motion made by Ruth and seconded by Cody. Ted, you have a report for us?
Yes, sir. Mr. President, members of the board, this resolution adopts the local emergency operations plan, including a basic plan specific to the city of Branson. This LEOP is needed to coordinate the response of emergency personnel in supporting services of all county and municipal agencies in the event of a large-scale emergency or disaster. This plan was revised cooperatively with the Taney County Emergency Management and community partners at no cost to the city. This document provides a basic plan for specifics to the city of Branson, including our Branson alert system, our outdoor warning sirens. The LEOP is set in emergency support functions, including emergency management, public works, fire rescue, law enforcement, energy and utilities, damage assessment, public information, and more. The LEOP is reviewed and approved by the Missouri State Emergency Management, and the maintenance of the plan is required of certain state and federal grants. For us to receive those, we have to have this in place. And the LEOP also requires the approval of the chief elected official. So when we have a mayor change, as we did with Mr. Milton, we have to bring this back to you.
Okay, thank you. Finished with the report, I take it. Okay, anybody in the audience wish to discuss on this? Any alderman?
Yes, sir. The mayor emailed me and had a few questions he wanted me to read in his absence.
go ahead.
If that's okay. This is from Mayor Milton. I want to highly compliment all of those who have contributed to this document. I have not read and studied this document. However, I have reviewed each of the 366 pages contained in this emergency plan. In the case of an emergency, my comfort level for all residents within the city of Branson has been elevated after reviewing this document. This document does raise a few questions to be considered. On page 112, Communications, is it practical to combine any of the dispatch centers for both cost efficiency and effectiveness? I guess these are for you, Chief.
I happen to receive the same email, so let me
Okay.
work through that.
You could read your own questions, couldn't you?
Two different topics, and I want to make sure it's very clear that the LEOP is a guidance document to be used in the Emergency Operations Center. It doesn't tell Chief Matthews what to do in the police department. It's a guidance document. It doesn't tell Kendall what to do in the utilities. It's a guidance document to work towards success of an actual working disaster. So sidebarring to the question, another topic, now you're going to ask a personal opinion. Yes. Sure, we've tried to go down that trail with the vote before, with the tax, and we're working with that direction with the Taney County Ambulance District. When we build a police station, we want to combine those efforts. So we see the cost effectiveness of joint communications.
Okay, very good.
Question two.
Question 2. On page 119, primary agencies, second bullet point, please provide an update, maintaining liaison with other agencies to ensure upgraded communications capabilities are compatible with jurisdiction with communication systems.
At some point, we're going to get there, but I want to tell you that Branson has led the way. And here's how it happened. We have brand new Motorola tri-band radios. We have the opportunity to speak to just about anybody now between the state system and the tri-band radios that this community has supported. So multiple entities are on different bands and different programs, and we can speak to virtually almost all of them now. Now, that takes a little coordination to get people to play on the same channel, and we're working towards those models. That's a continuous improvement on our part.
Okay.
Let me ask, that was part of the public safety initiative that paid for that?
Yes, sir.
That's what you were alluding to. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, that's right. Same page, 119, amateur radio emergency services. Would it be prudent to enhance the awareness of this in case of a very serious disaster?
Absolutely. I am an amateur radio operator licensed through the FCC and play in that sandbox, if you will, and have for 30-some years. We have several clubs in the area, people that are citizens that are licensed. They practice with us in some of our drills. They're part of the emergency operations plan, and they continually try to seek new people to be licensed and use this type of radio system. So it's a fun hobby, but it's also a very valuable emergency communications backup. In fact, we have a network of repeaters linked across southwest Missouri up to almost Kansas City, and we can link into the SEOC, or the State Emergency Operations Center in Jeff City. So it's a redundant system for us as part of our EOP.
Okay. On page 202, preparedness, please provide an update for our citizens so they may be informed of any preparedness that they may want to consider.
The section that the mayor refers to is specifically towards the health department, and it doesn't matter what the topic is. Again, we're focused on an LEOP, which is a guidance document, but this is talking about working with the public. And very basically, we support the DHSS, the Department of Health and Senior Services. They have a great program called Radiant 3. We use that here. There are packets we can send out where it champions with local citizens to create a plan for you, your family, your business, to prepare a kit for your car, for your business, for your office, what have you, and to listen for information. So when we do our public education programs, we push that out. We go through an algorithm of local live broadcast media. We have a PIO working for the city now. It's been here for, feels like 15 years, maybe it's 3 or 4 years, Melody, wherever she went. That we have that algorithm being able to use a PIO down to local live broadcast media, down to print media, down to the outdoor warning sirens, Branson alerts. So we're able to use that to push information.
All right, thank you. Page 278, section 2.1 and 2.2. Please elaborate on these two items as it relates to our current Branson police force.
This relates specifically to the ESF for law enforcement. And if I go further, you're going to drive me into tactics, and I can't go there. I would need to be in that room and be kind of close executive session with the police chief. Again, the LEOP is a guidance document for how to get mutual aid resources, how to do some very basic get the ball rolling. The tactics are in his wheelhouse. So that's where that would be.
All right. Please summarize. Communication would be vital. Please take time to explain in simple terms so our citizens are informed. Please summarize page 325 through 349 as best possible. In the case of a disaster, what form or forms of communication should our citizens seek first? If that is not available, please describe alternatives.
Sure. ES15 or ES15, I'll get it out, ESF15 is based on public information. Again, the guidance document, we bring the PIOs in. We have one that's dedicated to the city. We have other PIOs in the city from Cox Hospital.
Ted, is that public information officer?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Silver Dollar City or HFE, for example. So we have, and the Chamber of Commerce, we have lots that come together in a large-scale incident. When we use that resource during the flooding, for example, in the tornado, when messaging was created to make sure people knew Branson was open for business. So it does focus on the public information side. The ESF coordinates public information resources in preparing for and responding to and recovery efforts for emergency disaster incidents. I think we have a good track record of that, of it's happening, or preparedness side of it, it's happening. And when we had the flooding, where to go? We were telling people, go to the Faith Lutheran Church to meet with state officials, for example. So we use every form of medium or media to get that word out. Within our basic plan, the city utilizes a full-time PIO, and the position is integrated into the incident management system that reports directly to the incident commander in the EOC or in the field. And so that's a valuable tool for us. And we encourage our citizens to connect. So I visited about that algorithm of good situational awareness comes from the live broadcast media, the print media, the radio. Here's what's coming. Here's what we think is going to happen, whether it be severe weather or flooding. Then working down into warnings, which has a redundant system of NOAA weather radios, down to Branson alerts, the next door system in our area, and then down to the outdoor warning sirens. We have multiple ways of communicating with citizens. One of the floods, I recall, we did 18 messages in 24 hours that we can do geographically. We can pull whatever part of the city or the entire city to get that out through Branson alerts. So we just keep on improving, and probably one of the best assets we have is a full-time PIO.
Thank you, Chief Martin. And to close, in the mayor's words, in summary, I am very impressed with the thoroughness of this document. I can't just imagine the hundreds and hundreds of hours it has taken to consolidate all of this information into one document. This is information we hope we will never need, and we will be blessed we have it in case we do. Thank you, Chief Martin.
Any further statements that you or Chief Matthews would like to make on this particular issue?
I do want to make sure it's very clear that when I became the fire chief / emergency management director, the state said it was time to revise this document. So, time and getting it done, and it was just ours. So Hollister had one, Branson had one, Bull Creek had one, Taney County had one, and I went after everybody and said, let's get in a room together. And we wrote one LEOP that we knew that when the tornado happened, it didn't just drop on 76, it went about 13 miles. When the flooding happened, it didn't just happen along the river here, it happened in Hollister and across the way and down in Forsyth. So we know that it's a bad day. We work together very well, whether it's be the mass communications or our radio system, what law enforcement does, what we do. That's what the LEOP does in the Emergency Operations Center. It gets us working together in the sandbox.
So you're saying everybody's reading off the same sheet of music?
Yes.
That is admirable.
Yep. Is it perfect? No, but we're getting better every day. So.
Any other comments for the board? Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Please vote. Thanks, Ted. Gotta go up to live meetings, what they told us. This is gonna be a Chad moment.
That motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the next item is the first reading of Bill Number 6119, an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement providing county vehicles and equipment at fires or related emergencies between the County of Taney, Missouri, and the City of Branson, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading of Bill Number 6119.
Mine shows waiting. Motion been made by Jeff, seconded by Ruth. You ready to, oh, we're on 12 or 13.
We're ready for a staff report.
Staff report, please. I turned the wrong page.
Mr. President, members of the board, Taney County desires to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with fire agencies across the county for the use of their vehicles and equipment at fires and other related emergencies. This agreement outlines Taney County's willingness to provide equipment at no cost during these emergencies. Requests for the use of equipment will be initiated through Taney County Emergency Management. Over the past years, Taney County has provided heavy equipment at large commercial fire scenes, such as the Quilt Shop on East 76 and the NEC Vitamin Place in Forsyth that we sent resources to, and also to haul dirt to assist our city with building up the earthen dam around Compton wastewater treatment plant several years ago during a flooding emergency along Lake Taneycomo. This is a renewal. It's worked well for us, and we recommend approval.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Anybody in the audience like to speak on this matter? Anybody on the board? I'm not going to be able to make mine. Mine's still waiting.
You want to call for a vote?
Pardon us while we fix our computer issues. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Everything popped up. Let's vote.
Your Honor, that passed 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to item number 13. Thank you, Ted.
Your Honor, the next item is the first reading of Bill Number 6120, an ordinance approving the contract with Thomas Motley for municipal court judge and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading of Bill Number 6120.
Motion made by Jamie and seconded by Ruth. Gina, you're going to give us the staff report, I take it.
I guess so.
But you said not to ask you any questions.
I did.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. This agenda item is for the reappointment of Tom Motley for judge of the municipal court. The contract covers a required minimum number of 40 court dates, which is consistent with past contracts, and we are asking for a double read this evening.
Okay.
Thanks.
So we have,
We just, do we have anybody in the audience that would like to
yeah,
discuss this?
please. No objections. Any aldermen for the discussion? Let's vote.
That motion carries 6-0.
Your Honor, I move to read Bill Number 6120 for its final reading due to the timing and getting this set up so we can have court again.
Motion made by Jamie, seconded by,
Second?
You're not up. Why are they not showing?
Cody. Motion been made and second. Anybody in the audience have any part of this discussion? Any alderman? Please vote.
That motion carried 6-0.
Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction for this item?
Your Honor, this is the final reading of Bill Number 6120, an ordinance approving the contract with Thomas Motley for municipal court judge and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. The floor is open for a motion to approve the final reading of Bill Number 6120.
Moved by Jamie, seconded by Cody. Anybody in the audience wish to speak on this matter? Hearing none, any alderman? Seeing none, please vote.
Your Honor, that motion carried 6-0. Your Honor, the next item is the first reading of Bill Number 6121, an ordinance accepting the proposal Express Press for imprinted shirts and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading of Bill Number 6120.
Moved by Ruth, seconded by Clay. We'll now have a staff report from Cindy.
Yeah, Mr. President, members of the board, 8 qualified bids were received on November 16, 2021 for the contracted imprinting of T-shirts for the Parks and Rec Department for 2022. I think you can see the bids there are listed. I think there's 8 bidders, and the bids reflect an estimate of 3,000 T-shirts, quite a few, varying from 1 to 3 colors in youth and adult sizes for programs such as youth and adult sports, day camp, and more. The contract includes up to 3 additional successive one-year terms if the vendor agrees to maintain pricing. Staff recommends approval of the contract with Express Press, which is who we have our contract with now, for the year of 2022 in the amount not to exceed $19,330.44. This is estimated on 2021 usage and anticipated future use. The bid specifications met city specifications and is within budget. Funds are budgeted in the 2022 operating budget. Staff recommends approval of the bill, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody in the audience wish to address the matter? Anybody on the Board of Aldermen? Seeing none, please vote.
Your Honor, that passed 6-0.
Thank you.
The next item is the first reading of Bill Number 6122, an ordinance accepting the proposal of truck component services for cab and chassis with 8-yard trash compactor assembly and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading of Bill Number 6122.
Moved by Ruth, seconded by Jamie. Report.
Mr. President, members of the board, 5 qualified bids were received on November 18th, 2021 for the purchase of a new trash truck consisting of a cab and chassis with an 8-yard trash compactor for the Parks and Rec Department. You can see there are 5 bids there and consisting of 2 different companies. The trash truck will replace a 2028 Isuzu with a 6-yard compactor that was scheduled to be replaced as part of the vehicle replacement program in 2020, but was postponed due to COVID. The current vehicle has 91,810 miles, and the maintenance cost to date is $20,315.65. The trash truck is utilized by the Park Maintenance Department to pick up trash in the parks and downtown and the campground, different places. The new truck will include a larger 8-yard trash compactor to assist in the increased trash load. Staff was notified that the vehicle that was the low bidder is no longer available to purchase as it was sold. Staff recommends bid to be awarded to Truck Component Services in the amount of $122,100. The bid meets city specifications and funds are budgeted in the 2022 capital improvement projects budget. Staff recommends approval of the bill. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Anybody in the audience wish to speak on this matter? Seeing none, any alderman?
I'll go. I rarely get giddy at items like this on the agenda, but this was bought smart. The one that we had before, the Isuzu, 91,000 miles, it was just getting broken in. So we didn't need something like that. The gas engines are great for our use.
Jeff, you got to speak into the mic.
We're going to put very few miles on those. So, you know, going up into like these Isuzu class trucks wouldn't make any sense. And it's good to see that we went up 2 yards, so 8 yards. And I can't remember the gentleman's name who did the search on this.
Jim Cartwright, you
yes.
spoke to him, yeah.
We had a lot of talk about it. And the 6 yard was working, but, you know, end of life and going up 2 yards this is going to last us a while.
Yeah, there's been a lot of spike in trash usage, obviously, since COVID. And so a lot of people are using the parks, a lot more trash than there used to be. And I think this is a good choice, and also something our garage can work on too, better than.
Absolutely, that was the other point,
I think,
yeah.
big component. I'm sure Keith will appreciate that.
Yeah, and this, however this goes to auction or whatever, there's going to be good value.
Yeah.
Selling this truck that virtually it's not new. It's got a lot of life in it. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to commend Cindy for the job that you do as Director of Parks and Rec. You are continually mindful of our citizens' taxpayer dollars, and it is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the compliment to her very much. Anybody else? Okay, let's vote.
That motion carried 6-0.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we go into the next item, we're going to take about a 5-minute break. Some of us have been going at it since 5 o'clock, and so we're just going to take about a 5-minute break. Ready? Let's gavel the thing back to order and get on to item number 16.
Your Honor, the next item is the first reading bill number 6123, an ordinance approving a zoning change from medium-density residential MDR to high-density residential HDR for the properties located within blocks 3, 4, and 5 of the Lucia subdivision, Branson, Missouri. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading of bill number 6123.
Motion made by Cody and seconded by Jamie. We're going to have a staff report from Jake.
Good evening, members of the board. Tonight we have a request for a rezoning from medium-density residential to a high-density residential zone district for the properties blocks 3, 4, and 5, Lucia Ridge. As you'll see here, this is the current zoning. My apologies. Current properties and subject, which also include the old school property and field, just south of that, or east of that, my apologies. The total of tonight's request includes 19 properties, which is a combination of residential, single-family, night rentals, and the old school property, Branson High School. As you'll see here, the adjacent properties are zoned as medium-density residential and neighborhood commercial. This is the proposed zoning, high-density residential. And as you see here, while the school is inactive and has been for some number of years, it is still categorized as land use as institutional and vacant property. As always, we provide our orthometric views. And I'll go back to the zoning. Maybe.
Get some help, Jake. Which
My apologies. There we go. Got it.
Good job.
All right. So the total acreage is 4.61 acres, or excuse me, 4.81 acres in total. That includes all the properties. The request is specifically to add a traditional layer of zoning. As this was rezoned previously, high-density residential zone district wasn't part of the community plan 2030. And part of that, as we go along, it was implemented as a new zone district. And so to time, the city of Branson has in its power to rezone properties and to stay consistent with the proper use and proper zoning of those. And we noticed and identified here that there was an absence of proper zoning, which is that transitional layer between commercial and residential. So while high-density residential is a residential zone district, it does allow for what it specifically says higher density. So specifically, the one use that we're looking for, which would promote, is multifamily, trying to promote that neighborhood zone district. This property zoning has been brought up before to prior boards for this exact same use, but it didn't make it through quite yet. So we are looking to, we see this as potential to promote development and revitalize the dilapidated buildings there. That's one portion of our properties in which, you all know, we previously presented for property maintenance and inspections. This has been an additional cost to the city for us since 2011, which we overtook the property for a sum of $200,000 over the course of 3 years. Since then, it has been my understanding that through the Public Works Department and others that we have put a significant cost into these properties, and so we've been proactively seeking to sell it, and I think this would be a good start to do so. The Planning Commission recommended approval through Bill Resolution, ZO 21-7 with the 7-0 vote recommending approval.
Staff recommends approval as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this matter? Hearing none, any aldermen, alder ladies?
Thank you for a presentation tonight. Thank you for all the work you've put into this.
Thank you.
Cody, anything? Jeff?
So we had any written correspondence, any pushback, any nobody, not in my backyard kind of stuff?
That's a great question, and we have not. I have received phone calls from several property owners who have nightly rentals in this area, who have rentals in this area, and once explained what the zoning is, if that's going to remove any type of what they do, is going to create non-conforming uses, there is none, so.
I mean, we've got neighborhood commercial right across the street. There's churches, hair salons. I don't see how anybody could not be for this. And I think we met an industrious young man on the campaign trail who was gobbling up those parcels. You know, this is what this calls for in that area right there, so. Thanks.
Absolutely, thank you.
Anybody else? Clay? Jamie? Okay, let's vote.
That motion carried 6-0.
Hooray.
Thank you.
We've come down to the part of the agenda on Alderman Reports. Mrs. Denham?
I would just like to say Happy New Year to everybody, and thank you so much to our chiefs, to our department directors, to everyone who put so much into putting their presentations together for our meeting and answering questions, and to all the citizens who continually come and participate, which is very, very appreciated, and all that watch on YouTube and participate from home. Thank you so much.
Alderman Cooper?
I do not have a report. Thank you.
Excellent. Alderman Fenton?
No report.
Oh, we are moving along. Alderman Whitus?
Well, now I got to say something. So, just give everybody, Ted, you correct me if I'm wrong, but we're having an audible warning test tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. All right. So when you hear that siren go off, you'll know it is just a test. It is just a test. Also, this week, Chief Matthews is welcoming 4 new officers in their badge pinning ceremony. So I just want to welcome Ty Albrecht, Zachary Hamilton, Austin Mendoza, and Michael Walkup. And I hope I got their names right. So thank you.
Ditto. Let me ask something real quick. Chief, where is that going to be held? Here? Downstairs? Thank you.
Right here.
Right in here, okay. I was close. Same building, huh? Jeff?
I'm going to defer.
Stan?
No report, sir.
I've got a few. Part of this is mine's, part of it is Larry's. We've had this discussion that's been in the paper about the Compton project downtown and why is it taking so long? Because the federal government wants it to take so long, and because we don't want to get into what happened in the Highway 76 project, where there was some issues missed, and it cost us dearly, some embarrassment to the community. It cost us some money. But from somebody who's dealt with federal programs for years, you don't get anything done within a 30, 60, 90, 120-day period. You may be lucky if you get these grants awarded within 3 years, and I think we're right down on that time frame. If the SID 76 project has commenced, Jeff and I can't remember, Jamie, did you come to the meeting where we met with the engineers? Just us two?
I talked to a couple of them, though. So.
It's eye-opening. They feel, and of all things, we gave Keith the night off. He didn't have any projects to discuss with us. But we met with the engineers from every one of the departments, and they would assure us that they have started that project and it would be finished by the first week in March. There's a lot of kudos to go to everybody, our staff, the hard work they put into it. It's about time it got started. The mayor, Clay, and I met with Gail Meyer, Senator Moon's office, and Brian Seitz to discuss some economic development issues Do you want to add anything to that at all?
I thought it went well.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great discussion and a needed discussion, yeah.
We talked about a myriad of issues, and they seem to be receptive. Just yesterday, we met with the Tourism District Chair and some members of the Tourism District to discuss some issues we'd like to see change, and it would apply towards the issue of the website and fixing some minor items in there and some click-throughs. We're going to continue to push for affordable housing in this community for our valued workers, for simply this: if you don't have a place for them to stay, you're not going to have them into jobs. And there's an old saying, you have to put a head in the bed before you put a tail into the seat. Well, in order to have people to work in this community, they have to have an affordable place to live. And we're going to continue to push very hard on that. All of us have dedicated ourselves towards moving that direction. I think that's about it. That's probably enough. Anybody else, any further things to say before we bring this meeting to an adjourn? May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Moved by Ruth, seconded by Jamie. All vote? You better vote, too. There we go. Unanimous. Motion adjourned. Meeting adjourned. 7:32.